In a nation where power often silences principle, one man has consistently chosen the harder path, governed not by ambition, but by conviction. In the turbulent theater of Kenyan politics, few moments have defined the nation like the 2017 Supreme Court ruling that annulled a presidential election. At the heart of this decision was Chief Justice David Maraga, a symbol of judicial independence and courage. For a time, Maraga was the nation's moral compass, upholding the Constitution against immense pressure. After his tenure, he faded from the spotlight, but his legacy lingered, a benchmark for integrity in public service. And now, as Kenya faces deep-rooted corruption, youth disillusionment, and a chronic crisis of leadership, Maraga returns. Not to the bench, not as a judge, but to the people, to run for president in 2027. Maraga recently spoke to Joe Aguayo in an interview with NTV Kenya condemning the recent wave of state violence against protesters, emphasizing the urgent need to reset Kenya back to constitutionalism and the rule of law. David Kenani Maraga is not merely a jurist, he is a devout elder in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, a man who once made headlines by refusing to hear court cases scheduled on his Sabbath, regardless of national pressure. He steps into politics not for power but to answer a national call for moral leadership. Maraga positions himself as the conscience of a nation in leadership crisis, offering his record as proof of tested integrity. His candidacy disrupts the status quo, challenging decades of ethnic politics and transactional leadership. Maraga is not just another politician, he is a symbol of institutional integrity, asking Kenyans to reconsider what they value in their leaders. In 2027, he's not just entering a race, he's reviving a vision of a Kenya led by conscience, not corruption, by truth, not tribalism. Maraga's return forces a profound question. Can the man who upheld the law now lead the nation to uphold it? Kenya faces a deep crisis. Crippling debt, rampant unemployment, and eroding trust in public institutions. The Electoral Commission's credibility is in tatters, fueling voter apathy and the specter of violence. Into this turmoil steps Maraga, whose career has been defined by defending institutional integrity. His campaign is more than politics, it's a referendum on Kenya's future. Maraga argues that economic collapse stems from a moral and judicial breakdown. He insists that restoring trust in institutions is the first step to economic recovery. The 2027 election then is not just about leadership. It's a turning point for the nation's soul. Will Kenya continue its cycle of instability, or choose a new path anchored in justice and the rule of law? Maraga embodies this choice, offering a return to foundational principles. His campaign challenges Kenyans to demand more from their leaders, and from themselves. September 1, 2017. Kenya held its breath as Chief Justice Maraga delivered a verdict that would shake the continent. The Supreme Court declared the presidential election invalid, citing illegalities and irregularities. For the first time in Africa, a court nullified a sitting president's re-election. The nation erupted, some in celebration, others in outrage. For many, it was a victory for democracy, and proof that institutions could hold the powerful to account. For others, it was a judicial coup, plunging the country into uncertainty. Maraga became both hero and villain, his decision dividing public opinion. The ruling forced Kenyans to confront a fundamental question. Does authority lie in the ballot box or in the Constitution? Maraga's stand redefined the role of the judiciary in African democracy. It was a moment that proved the law could triumph over power. The echoes of that day still shape Kenya's political landscape. The 2017 ruling was made under immense pressure. Political threats, public scrutiny, and personal risk. Maraga could have chosen the easy path, but he chose the Constitution. He insisted that the process of an election is as vital as its outcome. Where the process is flawed, the result is illegitimate, no matter the numbers. Guided by evidence and the law, Maraga demonstrated that no one, not even the president, is above the law. His judgment was a lesson in the separation of powers and the supremacy of the rule of law. This was courage born of conviction, not recklessness. Maraga's stand was an investment in Kenya's democratic future. He showed that integrity is non-negotiable and fear must never guide justice. His actions set a new standard for leadership by principle. In that moment, Maraga embodied what it means to lead with courage and integrity. The 2017 Supreme Court decision transformed Kenya and inspired democracies worldwide. Maraga's ruling shattered the narrative of unchecked executive power in Africa. It proved that a courageous judiciary could resolve political disputes peacefully and legitimately. The judgment empowered citizens, validating their fight for justice and reform. The Kenyan precedent became a beacon for judicial independence across the continent. But the cost was high. Swift backlash, budget cuts, and personal attacks on Maraga and the judiciary. The experience revealed how fragile democratic institutions can be under political assault. Maraga's platform now centers on defending judicial independence and institutional integrity. The 2017 ruling stands as both a triumph and a warning. Justice is possible, but must be fiercely protected. This legacy of courage and consequence is the foundation of Maraga's vision for Kenya's future. As Kenya approaches the 2027 general election, a dark cloud of uncertainty hangs over the process. The institutional framework for a free and fair election seems to be weakening. At the heart of this is the state of the IEBC, caught up in controversy and disarray. Crucial leadership positions are vacant, stalling essential work and raising questions about its ability to deliver a credible poll. David Maraga warns that Kenya is sleepwalking into a constitutional crisis. The current state of the IEBC creates loopholes for manipulation and fosters public mistrust. The foundation of the election is crumbling, yet the political class seems indifferent. This is a core issue of national security and a direct threat to the democratic rights of every Kenyan. It's a fire alarm that Maraga is determined to ring. A nation's democratic future is deeply tied to the engagement of its youngest generation, yet in Kenya, there's a disconnect between the youth and the political process. Millions of young Kenyans remain unregistered as voters, a vote of no confidence in a system they feel has failed them. They're disillusioned by years of broken promises and rampant corruption. This widespread apathy is a democratic time bomb. Maraga calls for a national awakening to reignite the civic spirit of young people. Your apathy isn't a shield, it's a surrender. He condemns the systemic failure to teach young Kenyans about their constitutional rights and the importance of their vote. He's trying to turn their disillusionment into a driving force for change at the ballot box. David Maraga calls for active citizen vigilance, emphasizing that in a fragile democracy, the people themselves are the ultimate guardians. He urges Kenyans to be active protectors of the political process, demanding transparency in every stage. Maraga warns against electoral violence and the rhetoric of hate, reminding the nation of past disputes. He challenges bribery and voter buying, urging citizens to protect their vote and elect leaders based on character and vision. Maraga fosters a culture of ownership, emphasizing that democracy demands constant attention and courage. He believes a vigilant citizenry can safeguard Kenya's democratic future. Beyond political headlines lies a painful crisis for Kenyans: a broken economy. David Maraga argues Kenya's suffering isn't misfortune but moral decay. The root of the rot is corruption, with a parasitic elite siphoning public funds. Every shilling stolen is a job lost, a business stunted, a family denied opportunity. Maraga's remedy, a relentless war on graft, restoring the rule of law. He identifies budgeted corruption as the most destructive and the core problem. If elected, Maraga's first priority would be to attack budgeted corruption and misallocation of funds, and unlock resources for education, healthcare, and the availability of drugs in public hospitals. Good governance isn't just a slogan, it's the most effective economic policy. A healthy economy is like a magnet attracting investment, talent, and innovation. It thrives on confidence, stability, and the assurance that rules will be applied fairly to everyone. In recent years, however, Kenya's economic magnet has lost its pull. In fact, it has begun to repel. Maraga points to a deeply alarming trend: the flight of both local and foreign investors. He speaks of factories closing down not because of market competition, but because of relentless harassment from state agencies. He highlights a climate of fear where legitimate businesses are targeted for extortion by politically connected cartels, forced to pay hefty bribes simply to operate, or risk being driven out of the market by competitors who enjoy state protection. This is not the free market at work, it is state-sponsored racketeering. Maraga shares chilling accounts from business owners who have been forced to cede shares in their companies, pay protection money, or face endless, crippling regulatory hurdles designed to frustrate them into submission. This hostile environment sends a devastating signal to the global investment community. Capital is cowardly, it flees from uncertainty and injustice. When investors see that contracts can be arbitrarily cancelled, that property rights are not respected, and that the justice system cannot offer reliable protection, they take their money elsewhere, to countries where the rules of the game are clear and predictable. This exodus of capital is a self-inflicted wound that bleeds the economy of jobs and opportunity. The consequences for ordinary Kenyans are, honestly, catastrophic. Every business that relocates and every new investment that is scared away represents a loss of precious jobs in a country already grappling with mass youth unemployment. It shrinks the tax base, forcing the government to impose even heavier burdens on the remaining citizens and small businesses, creating a vicious cycle of economic decline. The promise of industrialization and value addition remains a distant dream when the very environment needed to foster it is actively being poisoned by greed and intimidation. The vibrant energy of Kenyan entrepreneurship is being suffocated, replaced by a climate of cynicism and despair. Maraga's vision is to fundamentally reverse this trend by making trust the cornerstone of his economic policy. He pledges to dismantle the state-backed cartels and create a level playing field where all businesses, big and small, can compete on merit, not on political connections. His administration, he vows, would be a partner to investors, not a predator. This involves guaranteeing the security of property rights, ensuring the sanctity of contracts, and building a predictable regulatory environment. By rebuilding trust and demonstrating an unwavering commitment to the rule of law, he believes Kenya can once again become a preferred destination for investment, unleashing the private sector's potential to create the millions of jobs the country desperately needs. At the heart of David Maraga's economic philosophy is the idea of economic dignity. He argues that the ultimate goal of any economic policy should be to restore dignity to the lives of ordinary citizens. This means creating an environment where every Kenyan has the opportunity to earn a decent livelihood through honest work. This vision prioritizes job creation, investing heavily in sectors with high employment potential, such as agriculture, manufacturing, and technology. By making it easier to start and grow a business, he believes the government can unlock the entrepreneurial spirit of the Kenyan people. His plan involves redirecting resources towards investments that have a direct impact on people's well-being. Maraga's vision for the economy is one of empowerment, not entitlement, building a system that rewards hard work. He offers a return to the principles of integrity, justice, and prudent management as the only sustainable path to an economy that works for everyone. When the Supreme Court nullified the 2017 presidential election, the executive branch saw it as an act of war and began a calculated assault on the judiciary. The promise to revisit the judiciary was fulfilled through financial strangulation, designed to cripple its operations. Maraga stated this was a direct attack on the separation of powers, effectively holding justice hostage. This financial warfare halted court construction and recruitment. Maraga had to publicly beg for funds. It was a fight for the very soul and independence of the institution he led. He warns that when the executive uses the budget as a tool of political punishment, the entire constitutional order is threatened. The direct and most painful consequence of the judiciary's financial starvation is felt by ordinary Kenyans every single day. The old legal maxim, "Justice delayed is justice denied," has become the lived reality for millions. With courtrooms stalled and files piling up to the ceiling, the wheels of justice have slowed to a grinding crawl. Aggrieved citizens, from small business owners trying to recover unpaid debts to families seeking justice for a loved one, are forced to wait for years, sometimes even decades, for their cases to be heard and resolved. This interminable delay is more than just an inconvenience. It is a profound injustice that erodes faith in the entire legal system and leaves wounds to fester within society. This systemic paralysis has created a breeding ground for impunity. When criminals know that the justice system is too overwhelmed to prosecute them effectively, crime flourishes. When the corrupt believe that their cases will be lost in a bureaucratic maze for a decade, they are emboldened to steal even more from the public. The crippling backlog of cases means that suspects, some of whom may be innocent, languish in remand for years, their lives put on hold. Meanwhile, the powerful and wealthy can exploit the system's delays, using endless legal maneuvers to evade accountability. This creates a two-tiered system of justice, one for the rich who can afford to wait and manipulate, and another for the poor who are left with no recourse. For David Maraga, this state of affairs is a moral catastrophe. He sees the faces of the people behind the case files, the widows fighting for their land, the orphans denied their inheritance, the victims of violence waiting for closure. The deliberate underfunding of the judiciary, he argues, has a direct human cost. It perpetuates suffering and denies citizens their fundamental constitutional right to a fair and speedy trial. An incapacitated judiciary is unable to protect the weak from the strong, to resolve commercial disputes efficiently, or to hold power to account. This failure does not just undermine democracy, it tears at the very fabric of social order and fairness. Consequently, a core tenet of Maraga's presidential platform is the full and unconditional constitutional funding for the judiciary. He advocates for a system where the judiciary's budget is a direct charge on the consolidated fund, protected from the whims and manipulations of the executive or legislature. This is not about giving judges a blank check. It is about guaranteeing the institutional independence required for them to perform their duties without fear or favor. He argues that investing in a functional justice system is not an expense, but a prerequisite for economic growth, social stability, and a functioning democracy. For Maraga, restoring justice begins with empowering the institutions designed to deliver it. In any democracy, the judiciary serves as the ultimate bulwark against tyranny and lawlessness. It is the last line of defense for the citizen against the overreach of the state. A free and empowered judiciary is the essential anchor of a democratic society. It ensures that power is not abused, and that the promises made in the Constitution are a living reality for all. The attacks on the Kenyan judiciary represent a systematic attempt to dismantle this last line of defense. The erosion of judicial independence is a direct precursor to the erosion of democracy itself. This is why Maraga speaks with such passion and urgency on this issue. His advocacy is born from the concrete knowledge of what is at stake. There can be no freedom, no justice, without an independent judiciary. To build a new Kenya, the first and most crucial foundation to secure is its last line of defense. Having diagnosed the nation's ailments, David Maraga transitions from critic to visionary. His entry into the presidential race is a response to a higher calling, a new leadership grounded in ethics and public service. He steps onto the political stage with the quiet authority of a man whose character has been tested. His campaign is launched in unconventional settings, deliberately shunning the massive rallies that have long defined Kenyan politics. This signals a departure from spectacle towards substantive engagement and a leadership of conscience. Maraga rejects the strongman model, speaking of servant leadership to uphold the Constitution and empower institutions. His interactions are different. He is seen engaging in dialogue, listening to the concerns of citizens. This approach is designed to build a movement based on shared values. His campaign is an appeal to the better angels of the Kenyan spirit. At the core is moral courage to stand for what is right. He is promising a leadership that will not flinch from difficult decisions, choosing the long-term good of the nation. For decades, Kenyan politics has been fueled by tribalism. Political leaders mobilize ethnic communities, creating a zero-sum game for power. This leads to divisive elections and post-poll violence. David Maraga enters with a clear message: this must end. He attacks the ethnic political calculus, framing it as the greatest obstacle to progress. Maraga's identity becomes a symbol of his ability to transcend tribal loyalties. He challenges voters to evaluate candidates based on character and ideas. His political philosophy: don't vote for me if you don't trust me, even if I am your brother. He is promoting a national identity based on shared citizenship. He speaks of Team Kenya, uniting people around fighting corruption, creating jobs, and building a just society. David Maraga's presidential bid is a campaign for the soul of the nation, offering Kenya a fundamental moral reset. He argues that the country's problems are symptoms of a profound moral and ethical crisis. Any meaningful change must begin with a restoration of the values of truth, integrity, and accountability. Maraga seeks to make the supremacy of law the guiding principle, ending the culture of corruption. Leadership by truth means being honest and governing with integrity to rebuild trust. His rejection of bribery is a cornerstone of this moral reset, challenging citizens to choose a leader who protects their resources. He is offering a new foundation upon which a more just, prosperous, and united Kenya can be built. As the sun sets on one political era, Kenya finds itself at a historic reckoning. The 2027 election is a national referendum where citizens decide on the path for their future. A broken economy, a threatened democracy, and a moral decay have brought the nation to this critical juncture. The choice is to either break the cycle of corruption or risk being broken by it. David Kenani Maraga steps into this crucible as an embodiment of one of those choices. He has presented a clear case, that Kenya's revival is impossible without a foundational moral reset. He asks for a verdict based on a record of unwavering courage and a vision of servant leadership. It is an invitation for every Kenyan, especially the youth, to reclaim their power and to understand that their vote is a moral one. The choice rests with the people. A new dawn awaits its architects. Like and share this video with fellow Kenyans. Subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments which Kenyan politician you'd like us to feature next. In case you missed Chief Justice Emeritus David Kenani Maraga's interview with Joe Agayo on NTV Kenya, please find the link in the description. We're here on a serious mission to separate the truth from the propaganda.